So to understand the three basic trigonometric functions, for any right triangle, the sine of an angle, in this case x, is the length of the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. The cosine is the length of the adjacent or next to it side divided by the hypotenuse. And the tangent is the length of the opposite side divided by the adjacent. Again, the hypotenuse being the longest side of a right triangle, opposite the 90 degree. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the length opposite the hypotenuse. The opposite side is across from the angle. The adjacent side is next to. SOHCAHTOA stands for the sine of any angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. The cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. A right triangle is anything with a 90 degree or right angle in a triangle. The special right triangles 45, 45, 90 has a ratio of radical 2, 2, opposite the three sides. And the 30, 60, 90 is a 1 radical 3, 2 ratio. It's not a 1, 2, 3 because that's the angle ratio. It's 1 radical 3, 2. An elevation angle is your angle looking up at an object, and a depression angle is an angle looking down on an object. To solve a trigonometric ratio, we need to first draw the angle. So in question number 1, we would draw the two sides that are needed to make angle A. Now we want to label HOA. Well, H, the hypotenuse, is going to be the longest side every time, opposite the 90. The O is the side that we didn't trace. So we traced AC and AB. Therefore, this one would be the O. And the third remaining side is the A. What trig function do we need? Well, we need the tangent. Tangent, okay, so in our SOHCAHTOA, tangent is the O divided by A. So to solve it, we just take the O divided by the A, and we can reduce that. They both have a GCF of 2, so 15 divided by 8 is our answer. So we'd still follow those same steps regardless of which angle we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about angle C. So I would draw from BC to CA. So here's my angle C. This is the opposite side, since we didn't draw that. Biggest side is the hypotenuse, and therefore the remaining side is the adjacent. The sine in SOHCAHTOA is O divided by H, which would be 36 divided by 45. The GCF of that is 9, so when I divide that by 9, I get 4 over 5. You should write the answer as a fraction and not as a decimal. Now, when it comes to solving the sine of 21, the cosine of 20, and so on, always press the mode button located right here on the calculator. What you'll notice is by default, the radians is what's highlighted. We want to go down and change that to degrees. Realize we haven't changed it until we've pressed the enter button. Now we can get out of this by pressing second mode. And if I want to just find the sine of 21, I can now type the sine of 21. And that would be my answer, 0.3584 when I round that 3 up because of the 6. So 0.3584. That's it. Make sure to change the mode from radians to degrees, since radians is default. If you clear the calculator, you'll have to always go back. Otherwise, you can just keep it in degree form. Now, a lot of people get confused when it's telling you to find the tangent, the sine, or the cosine of an angle, and they say what it equals. Now, it's really not that complicated. Make sure you're in degree mode, and we are from the previous example. Now we press the second button. We press the second button because we're going in reverse. So for problem number 1, we want the second tangent. What you should see is that little to the negative first power. That means I know the tangent, I'm going backwards. Then I type in the ratio, 2.0503, and when I press enter, I get that it is 64 degrees. So for example 3, second tangent, type in 0.6494, enter, and I get 33 degrees as my answer. Now, to figure out what the angle is that we're asking for, we want to draw the angle just like in before, and realize that this angle here is what we're talking about. Now we want to label the sides that we have. So 51 would be the O, 55 would be the H. In this particular problem, we don't care about the adjacent. So understanding in SOHCAHTOA, if I don't have any information for the A, then this is a sign question. So that is the trig function that I need to solve. So therefore, I'm going to solve that by using the inverse of the sine. So if the sine of my angle equals 51 over 55, then I'm going to solve that by saying second sine 51 over 55, and the answer is 68 degrees. So one more time, the steps: draw the angle, label the 3 sides O, A, and H. In this case, we don't care about A, so it's a sign question. If we didn't care about O, it would be a cosine question, and if we didn't care about H or didn't have any information, it would be a tangent question. So that's how you determine what trig function you need to solve this question. And lastly, you press second, sine, cosine, or tangent based on what you figured out in step 3, and then you type in the ratio of the 2 sides, either O over H, A over H, or O divided by A. The last way to solve is when we're trying to find a missing side or angle. We've already dealt with the angle, so now we're trying to find a missing side. The first thing we should again do is draw the angle so that we're not confused with what we're talking about. So that we've highlighted 27. X is my opposite. There's my H opposite the 90, and here's my A. So now that I've labeled the 3 sides, I want to set up my trig ratio. O and A are what I have information for. And to repeat my SOHCAHTOA, since I have no information for H, the 2 trig ratios with H in it then are not the ones we're using. So I know it's a tangent question. The tangent of my angle equals O, which is X, over A, which is 10. So the tangent of 27 equals X over 10. To solve for X, we multiply 10 to the other side. Make sure you don't actually multiply the angle. We're not trying to do the tangent of 270. So to solve this problem, that's all you'd have to type in, is 10 times the tangent of 27. And we get 5.1 as our answer rounded to the nearest tenth. So X equals 5.1. It will always be a tangent if I have an OA. It'll always be sine if it's OH, and it'll always be cosine if it's AH.